The following contains spoilers for the 2019 Joker movie. You have been warned. Greetings, fellow mortals. There are a few facts that I find odder than the idea that 2019 was 3 years ago. It feels more like a lifetime ago. It was the year before the pandemic. Even with how things were so chaotic and political, they were a lot calmer than what came in 2020. Granted, I knew that 2020 would be a bit crazy here in the US. It was a national election year after all. I knew that people were going to act a little bit insane. There was just no way of knowing what was actually going to happen though. In comparison to this post-COVID world, 2019 seems like a very simpler time. I started my relationship with my then girlfriend and now wife. I moved for the first time in years. I was transitioning between jobs. Even then, I didn't think that things would be as wild as things got in the coming year. There was a bit of craziness from 2019 that still sticks out in my mind, however. People were reacting to the new Joker movie coming out. Now, this was a movie that I was excited about personally. With Endgame finally finished, I felt my interest in the superhero genre waning. Joker's wild differences from the conventional comic book story caught my attention. It looked like it would tackle more mature topics. The R rating made me think that DC was going to let Todd Phillips do what he wanted. I was hoping that it would be like Logan in terms of comic book movies that I liked. A grim look into a world where demigods fly around in capes. And the truth ended up being that I love the movie. It's one of my favorites of the genre of the 2010s and one of my favorite movies of all time. I've combed through it several times. I picked apart the subtle details, the performances, the shots, and the dialogue. It was a movie that spoke to me at the time. Joker actually messed with my head a bit. It's a movie that's soaked with sadness. In a lot of ways, art shows how the creators view things around them. Joker was a hard look at the world. It found the situation and the people inadequate. Instead of acting angry though, the movie seemed to be openly sobbing. I thought it was begging for things and for people to be just a little bit better. You can ask my wife. I felt sad for a week after seeing the film. It's not the saddest I've ever been, and I wouldn't say that I was depressed. I don't think that I even cried. I just felt like I had low energy. I felt my motivation drip away. I can remember standing in the shower with the Joker soundtrack playing in the background. I remembered everything that the movie showed. All I could feel was that the world would never get any better. In retrospect, I don't think it was the Joker movie that made me so sad. No, the truth was that the reaction to the movie made me feel a lot more dismal than anything else. While I had high anticipation for the Joker movie, I remember there seemingly being an active campaign against the movie, both online and on the news. What caught my attention at first was that the media was saying that the movie would be filled with toxic behavior and hatred. People who hadn't even seen the movie declared that it was too violent. Critics were predicting that the main character, Arthur Fleck, would be glorified, that he would be a violent monster, that the movie would worship him and revel in his acts of terrorism. The end result proved to be the complete opposite. When Arthur commits violence, it's striking and shocking. The movie never praises what he does. Instead, it gives a sense of unease and sadness. How could things come to this? The movie asks in shock. How could this have been prevented? Then there's a strong sense of sadness afterwards. Sure, Arthur acts more free and unclouded after lashing out. Every time he kills someone, the Joker begins to dance. But that's because he's falling further and further into the abyss and is growing to like it. I never once got the sense that Arthur's actions were ever being condoned by the film. Another odd stance that people who hated the movie used was that it was about incels rising up. There was this idea that men who thought they deserved sex from women would be inspired by the movie, that they would lash out, commit terrible acts of misogynistic violence. Some even predicted that there would be active shootings at the movie theaters. Fortunately, that didn't happen, despite the fact that it seemed like people were wishing that it would occur just to justify their strange campaign. Needless to say, I'm happy that nothing happened, because that would have been horrible. But it became painfully obvious to anyone that actually paid attention to the movie that Joker wasn't about incels. I don't think the film ever even addressed the concept of sex. There was romance, to be sure, or at least delusions of romance, desire for romance, yearning for romance. Arthur imagines that he has a relationship with a woman throughout the film, but it never once comes off as sexual. He only ever even imagined kissing her once. In fact, I think the imaginary version of Sophie often just stayed by Arthur's side and offered emotional support throughout the film. There was never any point in the movie where Arthur came off like he hated women simply for the fact that they were women. He's never shown to hurt the real Sophie when he realizes that he dreamed up their relationship. His violent actions against his mother were because of her abuse and lies, not because of her gender. There were other situations where random female characters treated Arthur poorly, but there are even more where men treated Arthur even worse. The Joker never came off like it hated women. It just portrayed Arthur as sad and pathetic at times. After adding everything up, the campaign against the movie comes off as rather silly. It is a violent film, but the movie never lied about that. And it didn't glorify any of the murders or acts of violence. It just showed that they happened. Plus, there wasn't any random acts of violence. Everyone that Arthur hurts or kills up to the very end of the movie had done something bad to him. The movie goes out of its way to show that Arthur will spare those that either treated him neutrally or treated him with kindness. There isn't any widespread hate for no reason. Now, you might think that the unfounded hate is strange enough, but something even weirder happened after the movie came out. I started to see a lot of weird takes by people who liked the film. Reviews came out of nowhere saying that Joker was about revolution against corrupt politicians, billionaires, and large companies. These stances are a little bit more understandable. Gotham City is shown to be full of trash. People are on strike, the poor and the mentally ill have been thrown away, civil unrest has spread across the entire city. Gotham has become a volcano that is ready to erupt. Arthur just so happens to be the catalyst which causes the eruption. People saw a lot of different things in the movie. Anti-capitalism, anti-billionaire, anti-government, anti-union, anti-gun laws, anti-guns, anti-police. Any major talking point that could come up politically did. People seemed to see what they wanted to see in the movie. In a lot of ways, I think that's what makes Joker such an amazing story. People can see a lot of different issues and messages in the film. The creators never came out and denied anything either. Instead, I think they let Joker act as a mirror. They let people use the movie to look into their own souls. Perhaps that's what I should do too. But I always found it odd how reviewers acted like Thomas Wayne was a complete monster. He was never shown to be the cause of any of the problems in Gotham. He didn't know what actually happened in the subway where his employees were killed. He didn't know that 2 of them were killed in self-defense. We didn't get to see his politics, or if the reason that he was running for public office was actually for the right reasons. It could be that he was a monster. It could be that he was a good man. The movie didn't show or tell us because Arthur really didn't care. That's why the reaction around Joker stood out to me so much. It was clear throughout the movie that Arthur really didn't care about the politics of Gotham. He didn't care about Thomas until he thought that Thomas was his father. And he didn't care about the protesters either. Everything was just distractions from his goal of trying to make people laugh. I especially found it odd when people condemned Thomas for punching Arthur, when Arthur stuck his fingers into a child Bruce Wayne's mouth. If you don't have that kind of reaction to a strange man sticking their fingers into your child's mouth, then I don't know what to tell you. I thought that Thomas showed a lot of restraint on the sad clown by not having Arthur arrested, beaten, or killed. With all the strange takes on Joker, I found myself being confused for a long time. It made me sad because I thought that the message of the movie was pretty simple. My wife even agrees with me. Joker was asking people to treat each other just a little bit more kindly. Perhaps if one more person had been kind to Arthur, none of the bad things would have happened. There wasn't a soul in the movie that treated Arthur as a human being. People treated him like trash or a joke. The character's actions made me sad, just like people's perceptions of the movie made me sad. Perhaps you can make the case that's merely my interpretation of the movie. Maybe that's just what I see when I look in the mirror. You could be right about the movie being about mental illness or how society abandons those people. I can't argue with that take. And if you think that Joker is about revolution, that's fine too. Maybe the creators really did want the movie to be a mirror that people could interpret. Perhaps the entire film is just a test to see how people react to it. That makes me naive then. I can be a bit of an idiot for thinking that the world could be a little bit better if we treated each other just a little bit more kindly. That's fine with me though. I believe in that. And if Joker is a mirror, then I'm glad that's what I see. But I still think that people miss the point of Joker. It felt like the movie was one last desperate plea before 2020 for everyone to start treating each other just a little bit better. A bit more like we're all human beings. Think about how different things could be right now if people tried to follow that lesson for the past 3 years. That world sounds a lot more appealing than whatever Twilight Zone episode that we're living through right now. That's for sure. Thank you so much for watching. Don't think that it's too late to take Joker's message to heart. I strive to be a bit kinder to people every day. Maybe a bit more patience and love can help make people's lives a little bit better. Maybe it can help a situation like Arthur's. After all, wouldn't you feel better if people acted a little bit kinder and more forgiving to you? I think it's worth a shot at least. And if you like my takes on storytelling, please remember that I will be self-publishing my novel, A Dance of Frozen Death, at the start of 2023. I hope that you will check it out. I appreciate you. Do not despair.